The dog and I are standing in front of a mistake. That boat is not meant to be there. It's the latest Spirit of Tasmania vessel and it's cloistered off from the public. You can't really get close to it. It's protected like a Fabergé egg. And like a Fabergé egg, that thing is valuable, but at the moment it's purely ornamental. The first blokes and Sheilas arrived in Tasmania on foot around 40,000 years ago. By about 12,000 years ago, Bass Strait was existing and all the people now on the island were stranded upon it. The Boda expedition of 1800 saw the French map the coast of Australia. An artist on the trip was Charles Alexandre Lesueur. He made a colour engraving depicting a canoe on the eastern shore of Schouten Island. There is no evidence that these smaller Tasmanian boats could travel super long distances. European explorers visited Van Diemen's Land at different points over the centuries leading up to British colonisation. In the 1800s, a variety of boats took passengers between the Australian mainland and Tasmania, and a lot of people also arrived directly from Europe. The wreck of George III by Norwegian artist Knut Bull is an 1850 depiction based on the description of the aftermath of the 1835 event, figures salvaging cargo. Following a 4-month voyage from London, the convict transportation ship was just 120 miles from Hobart when it struck submerged rocks late in the evening. In the Don de Castro Channel, guards fired their guns to quell rising panic, killing some. Many drowned below the deck. Of the 133 who died, 128 were convicts. 40 of the convicts were also children. It wasn't until after Federation that a more formalised regular ferry service came into existence. SS Long Gunner was launched in 1904 and commissioned to travel between Melbourne and Launceston. During the North Mount Lyell disaster in 1912, she was used to deliver desperately needed rescue equipment from the Victorian minefields in hasty time. Tasmanian Steamers Proprietary Limited was a company that operated passenger ferries across Bass Strait from 1921 to 1959. Several of their vessels were used for warfare, often transporting troops. The Nirana was being built in Scotland when construction was suspended at the outbreak of World War I. Following the resumption of work, she had been requisitioned by the Royal Navy with dazzle camouflage, complex patterns of geometric shapes in contrasting colours, interrupting and intersecting each other. Unlike other camouflage, the aim is not to conceal the object, but to mislead the enemy, and so cause them to take up a poor firing position. 1940 Zealandia. She did regularly take passengers between Hobart and Sydney. She was requisitioned by Australian forces as a troop ship to sail between Sydney, Darwin and Singapore. Anchored in Darwin Harbour the day the Japanese attacked the Northern Territory. A lifeboat pulls away from Zealandia as Neptuna explodes in the background. 7 wrecks remained in the Darwin Harbour. It was an impediment to shipping and general port development. After numerous attempts to find a contractor, it was, strangely, a Japanese organisation, the Fujita Salvage Company, that successfully secured the tender and obtained the rights to the wartime wrecks. The first ship they raised from the ocean was a transporter, the MV British Motorist. That ship became the living quarters for the workers who were initially not permitted on Australian soil so soon after the end of the Second World War. From 1959 to 1972, the Princess of Tasmania made crossings between Melbourne and Devonport. In 1973, the Empress of Australia replaced the Princess of Tasmania. She continued making Bass Strait crossings right up until 1986. She was renamed Royal Pacific and operated for a casino. In 1992, she was accidentally rammed by a Taiwanese fishing vessel in the Straits of Malacca. At the time of sinking, she was carrying 516 people. 30 of them perished. German-built Niles Holgersen was purchased by the Tasmanian government in 1985 and renamed the Able Tasman. She first went back to a builder's yard for a refit and had to have a large box-like structure added to the stern of the ship for the crew, because the Australian Maritime Union rules did not allow the crew to be under the deck. The Able Tasman increased the crossings to 6 weekly overnight trips between Devonport and Melbourne, with passenger numbers surpassing expectations. All the ferries since the Able Tasman have been quite a lot like the Able Tasman. After retiring from Tasmanian service in 1993, she changed hands several times and spent the last of her working years in Greece. Engine failure that saw her crash into port, crushing a car. Moored since 2015. In 2022, she was sailed to Turkey and scrapped. In 1990, the Sea Cat. At different points there have been experiments using high-speed catamarans. The superfast vessel could get between the two land masses in just 4.5 hours. The brainchild of Hobart builder Bob Clifford and Sydney naval architect Philip Hercus. There were plans to have larger boats and faster boats. This was an optimistic vision of the future, but Bass Strait was simply too rough. I personally rode on it 4 times, and I was sick, and lots of people around me were sick also, and I remember people calling it the Chunder Cat. Although not suitable for Bass Strait, the new boat technology was superb and has since been improved. Today Incat has built more than 50 vessels, around 40% of the world's large capacity, high-speed passenger and vehicular ferry fleet. In 1990 was again German built. Originally called the Peter Pan, it was renamed the Spirit of Tasmania. The Spirit of Tasmania is actually the name of the company that runs the boats, and the boats that run for that company all have names with numbers. In 2002, the existing Spirit of Tasmania was replaced with 2 ferries, built in Finland in 1998. These were called Spirit of Tasmania 1 and Spirit of Tasmania 2. 2 crossings each night, leaving simultaneously from Melbourne and Devonport. From January 2004 to June 2006, a third ship, Spirit of Tasmania 3, operated on the Devonport to Sydney route. Passenger demand never took off though. After just 2 years, the service was scrapped. Some may say that the Spirit 4 and the sister ship Spirit 5 will be operating in October next year, replacing the small current 2 ferries. In current days, the island is meant to already be enjoying at least one brand new purpose-built vessel. The Spirit 4 is currently in Hobart because it is unable to berth in Devonport, where she belongs. This is because the Tasmanian government failed to plan ahead. On their watch, nothing got done. Construction of the berth should have begun around 2021 when the 2 new boats were ordered. Instead, they didn't start building the new berth until 2024. Originally announced to cost $90 million, is now forecast to cost almost $500 million. It is, quite possibly, the worst incident of civil infrastructure mismanagement in Australian history. In about 30 years' time, the new large ferries will probably need to be replaced. The ones that Tasmania get then might be bigger and they might be better. One might hope that they come in on time.